Welcome to American TESOL Presents Free Friday Webinars. I'm Shelly Sanchez Terrell, your hostess, and we're here every Friday. We have free 30-minute webinars, so you can invite anyone. We share with you the slides, so those are free to download. We also share with you the links. We have over 200 topics, so they're geared for language learners, but we also talk about math and science and history, because many times you'll have where it's content, language, integrated learning. Sometimes you have to teach subjects with language learners, so you'll find something for every kind of age group as well. Today we're going to talk about different ideas for teaching Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa. And you can take some of the apps and the web tools and the ideas, and you can use them for other holidays, or you can just use them for creative projects, so they don't necessarily have to focus on those different types of holidays. But it's a great time to really teach different holidays, and there's so many cool ways that you can do this. So you can already download the slides. But the other thing I want to let you know, thanks to American TESOL, this upcoming year for January, we're also going to have, and I put that in the chat box, the link to a technology certification that you can get from American TESOL. And so far, the webinars are going to be part of that, but because it's a certificate, we can only make room for 20. So make sure you can get signed up right away. I believe so far it's free, so that's always a good thing. But in the future, it may definitely cost, because these are definitely top of the line. We share the most relevant tools and technology there is out there, because I'm always teaching and training with these. And they're free web tools, and the kids will love them. So when we're talking about different holidays, it's important that I wanted to make sure that it wasn't so Christmas oriented. There's Kwanzaa, there's Hanukkah, and those start in December as well. We just finished with Thanksgiving, for those who do celebrate Thanksgiving. And upcoming, we do have something called, we have Cyber Monday. So we did do a webinar on Cyber Monday recently, and you can find lesson plans for that and the resources when you go back as well. But this is a great time to really do a lot of things that celebrate families, your students' cultures, their traditions, and we can actually get all of those traditions and cultures together with activities, and we can have it to where they each teach us, and that way they celebrate their traditions and their cultures. It also helps them with assimilation, but it's also very interesting, because then your students get to teach you. And so how do we do all of that and make sure that we don't offend anyone, or make sure that, other celebrations and cultures, we don't force the kids in a way to have to celebrate. So that's always the tricky part, I think. But there's so many ways that you can really learn, and you don't necessarily have to. You can learn about the history, and you can learn about the different types of games and traditions. So you not only learn about, why would you want to learn this? Well, one of the reasons you might want to learn this, definitely history. So a lot of this is embedded in history. A lot of times, if you teach adult learners, for children it's really exciting, because then they can see how different children around the world play games, have toys, and it might give them a different perspective of whatever they celebrate. So for example, when I moved to Germany, in Germany they celebrated Christmas in this holiday season very different. It was a very different experience than the way it is in America, where I'm from. And the way that we celebrate with my culture, because I'm Latina, my culture also, it's different types of foods. For example, we have tamales that we usually serve during Christmas time. So this might not be a typical food that you have during the holiday season. And different types of for Hanukkah, you have to have some certain types of diet requirements. There's certain foods you actually can't eat. So it's really a great time to be able to study things like if you're learning about restaurant English, or if you're learning about the games they play. There are different types of games and toys. Here's a famous toy from Hanukkah that a lot of students will have, and there's famous songs too, like Drindle Drindle, and then there's, the Christmas carols, and we're going to talk about holiday songs next session, but there's certain drinks and symbols. There's different candles that are lit. And for Kwanzaa actually has where they have lots and lots of symbols. So Hanukkah and Kwanzaa actually last longer periods of time. And for Christmas, it's a very short period of time. So it's interesting for students to learn, hey, how come they get to celebrate a lot longer than I do? One of the best places, so I'm going to give you two places where you can find lots and lots and lots of resources that I always find a lot of resources myself. So one of them is definitely cybraryman.com. And he updates this each year about holidays. And so you can learn about the holidays there, and you can actually find handouts, you can find games, you can find stories, you can find information if you go to cybraryman.com. So I'm going to go ahead and give you that link. And let me go ahead and, oh, here we go. Get that for you. And then the other one who has a lot, if you don't find enough resources here, is definitely Larry Ferlazzo. So I've already got Larry Ferlazzo bookmarked, but he always has tons of great examples and ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and give you Larry Ferlazzo's. And the reason I like these specific links is because they cover Hanukkah, they cover Kwanzaa, and they cover Christmas as well. So you can teach, also you can make it align to the Common Core. So sometimes teachers think that they can't teach this because it doesn't align to the Common Core, but that's actually not true. You can actually make this align to the Common Core. And so with this life binder right here, and that's definitely in the different resources that I'm sharing today. So when we think of, the thing is, when I start doing this, I always think about for the holidays, I always learn a lot as well, because the other holidays that I don't celebrate, then I end up learning about the culture of that. And you can also find a lot of things if you go to Kids National Geographic, and they show different things from all over the world. So one of the easiest ways to learn from each other is we can definitely take the time to Skype other classes, and those classes, depending what part of the world they're from, they can really teach us a lot about different types of celebrations that happen in the other countries. So you can actually Skype with another class and see how they celebrate Christmas there. A lot of times they'll do that, is they'll do a group project, they'll learn different Christmas carols, and you can teach each other the languages. Or you can get experts. For example, Kwanzaa was actually a way to, it started actually in America, it started in the 70s, and it was a way to, or even it might have been a little bit longer, but it was a way to get African Americans to really look at, learn about Africa and the songs and the traditions and Swahili and things like that. So you could have definitely in your area, you could get speakers to come who teach about this. They actually have institutes that come, and they will let your students know about they will come, and they'll be guest experts. So you can have a Kwanzaa expert. You can have someone who's an expert from Hanukkah. For Hanukkah, you can actually, instead of, if you're learning about geography, then in your geography class, what you can do is you can actually have a guest speaker from, for example, for Kwanzaa to come virtually, and they can tell you about Africa, and they can teach the students different phrases and different types of traditions and things like that. So that's always a really nice idea. A lot of students really like this. The great thing is if you do with Skype, and I've done this lots and lots of times, this is what I usually have when I have a Skype lesson. I only have my laptop, and this is the one I'm presenting on today, and I project the person on the screen. What you can do is a lot of times the students, if they're doing something, as long as they have something to do, if they have a back channel, if they're writing down notes, if they're filling in maybe crossword puzzle that has to do with what's being answered. I mean, as long as they're doing something, if they're tweeting with a hashtag, or if they have a today's meet or a Linowit, something in the background where they have to put in ideas and they're chatting, then more than likely they're going to pay more attention and they're not going to get off task. I like to get them to make things. So, for example, during Christmas time, we actually had, for my German students that were 4 to 6 years old, we had a little boy named Thomas. He was 5 years old. He was from the United Kingdom, and he Skyped in with us, and he taught my learners how to make origami boxes. And so it's really great because it showed dexterity, but then they got to listen to the directions in English, and they got to see, um, and they were making things at the same time. And the great thing about it is origami is a great gift. So then they could go and they could give that to their parents. So you can do things like that. You can have where they're teaching them a game. Maybe they teach them how to play children's games that revolve around Hanukkah and also Kwanzaa. They can also make it interesting and fun where they can actually do something hands-on. Um, you can find a lot of guest experts if you go to education.skype.com guest experts. So I'm actually going to share with you just the Skype education, because Skype does such a great job of having Skype is really good with doing things with education. So they have everything set up. You can find classrooms to Skype with. You can find Christmas. You can find Christmas class projects to join in. So Skype in the classroom is really awesome. But one of the best things, okay, so you hear things like Dr. Seuss, right? There's a lot of stories, and stories are a great way to learn about customs and traditions and culture. So we have famous ones like Scrooge, or we have the one where the Grinch stole Christmas. So let's say you have a famous a story that you like and a story you want to share. Well, the great thing is you can go to Skype an author. There's a lot of ways. Even when you go to Education Skype, they have the author site. So if you go to education.com Skype, they kind of take care of it all. But there are other sites out there like the Skype and Author Wiki. If you Google Skype and Author, you'll actually find tons of sites where you can find authors who wrote a good Christmas story. And if you teach really young learners, that's something that they'll really enjoy. They'll really enjoy that they get to meet the author who wrote one of these fun stories about Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Christmas. So that's always a great way for students to learn. One of my favorite authors, a lot of times, is Julia Donaldson, and she writes so many fantastic books that even have the different themes. But she takes out a guitar and, like, for example, she has her book, The Gruffalo, and she'll sing as well. She'll play the guitar and she'll sing, and the kids can sing. And so I like those kind of authors. So when you're looking for authors, don't just have them they don't necessarily just have to come and read, but they can do things. They can have them learn gestures, or they can have them during a certain part of the story do a movement, like maybe raise their hands, or maybe give a thumbs up or something. So these are ways to make sure that your students are focused. Another way is that you can have your students write interview questions, and this is something that I've done even with my adult learners. So when I've taught from 2 years old to 80 years old, and all over the world, actually. And so when I had my students, one of the things they would do is they would actually write interview questions. And that's always good practice because it teaches them the art of writing a good question. But not only that, they can peer review those questions to make sure that the grammar is correct, because then they get to go and they get to actually ask that question to whoever the guest speaker is. So there are times when I've been a guest speaker, and that's what's happened with me. So see, you notice you don't even have to have a lot of technology. You can use Google Hangouts instead as well. Um, Unfortunately, I'll bookmark the communities that will help you find authors and things like that that you can do on Google. You can always take a field trip. So one of the great things in San Antonio, where I'm from, and today actually I'm in very close to Houston, in Splendora, but wherever you are, let's say you want to take a real physical field trip. Well, this is a great time to do it. In San Antonio, we have, in one of the college campuses, we have where they light all the trees, and that's a big event. And that's something that I would take my high school students to each year, and they loved it. It was great because Roscoe, who's not here because he's sick, this is my pug that sometimes comes in and joins us. They would get to see Roscoe, and Roscoe would wear a little holiday sweater, and the students absolutely loved that. So it was a great way for us to meet and do things. Here we have things like posadas. We have like where Mexican traditional, where they do this big walk and they do the nativity scene, and there's a lot of different places that you can go for a class field trip. This is a great time. So if you look inside your newspaper, or sometimes if you go to the tourist site of whatever your city is, there's always going to be an event going on. And you can look up instead like what it is for Kwanzaa, or maybe you can look up what it is for Hanukkah or any holiday celebration, and you'll be able to find museum exhibits. And sometimes they have where the students, if you take them to the museum, they're free certain days. In San Antonio, we have it where it's free on Tuesdays. In Germany, we used to have, I think it was on Thursdays, once a month, there was where they had this night. All the museums were open and they had dancing. You can see where there's a dance taking place. You can see where there's a play taking place. You can see where there's different festivals. At the library, that's one of the best places to take a field trip, because they'll often have where you're making bookmarks, or they'll have where they have book readings. So these are all great places, an art exhibit of whatever the culture is. These are places where you can look for events to take your students on a very inexpensive field trip. So sometimes you just have to call them up, and then there's ways, and then they keep them occupied. They usually have activities. Sometimes you may find where there's volunteering, so you could go to different things like Habitat for Humanity. Here we have something called Elf Louise, and the students, we all get together and we actually we gift wrap, and then those presents that we wrap will actually be given to really poor families. We have something called a Jimenez dinner, and all the students go, and they actually will have where they cook, or they'll add meals or groceries. So this is a really great time where you can look all around, look in the local newspaper, look in the free, you can find in the free newspapers too. If you look at the radio stations, the local radio stations, sometimes they'll announce events as well. And sometimes if you look at the different cultural centers, if you have something where it's sometimes the different churches and things like that, they will all have plays and exhibits and different types of activities for your students. And you can always ask your students, of course, because they go to different events with their families. One of the things you can do is, even if you don't go to one of these events, one of the things you can do is have it on a Google Calendar. You can have a class calendar, and you can put all these events, and you can share that with the school virtually. And your parents will really appreciate that, because they'll appreciate the opportunity to be able to take their kids and be able to take them places during the holidays, because we have to remember that sometimes And I don't know your situation. I don't know how many of you get that particular time off from school. But if you're not teaching during that time, then your parents have to know. They're very appreciative when you let them know where they can take their children, because they have no idea sometimes. So if you put this all on a calendar, not only are your students learning outside your class, but a lot of times they're also spending time, some quality learning time with their family. So it's good to have it listed in a wiki or a website or a calendar. You can even print out the calendar and give it to those students who don't have computers. You can take a virtual trip. So I was telling you how Kwanzaa it really tries to celebrate the culture of Africa, and that's one of the places you can go virtually. And I'm going to share with you some free sites that you can take your students on virtual field trips. So if you can't take them outside the classroom, well, you can take one lesson and you can have it to where they all go on a virtual trip. Now, I showed you how you can do it with the big projector, so you don't necessarily have to have a computer for everyone. What you can do, as long as you have them doing an activity, then they will pay attention. They'll be really excited to learn. So you can go virtually. There, you can go to museums around the world. There are many different types of museums. You could go, for example, to the Smithsonian. You can go to the Louvre. So the possibilities are endless for free virtual trips. You can actually see a whole entire art exhibit virtually. There might be, for example, a Christmas tree exhibit. You can go to the North Pole, and before you go to the North Pole, you can ask your students. So, you could do some brainstorming, and they can list in pairs what they feel or what they think they're going to see at the North Pole. Something, for example, like polar bears. Are polar bears in the North Pole? This was a question that I didn't realize that they were only in certain parts. Or penguins. So you can learn a lot about animals. You can learn about geography, and your students can also learn about what is real, what is in movies, and what is in cartoons that may not necessarily be real. So these are good places. And then when you go there, then they keep an eye for it, and then they can check off like what it is that they saw that really was there and what wasn't there. They can also go see festivals in action. So one of the festivals coming up is the Chinese New Year. Let's say you wanted to go see a Chinese parade, the parade for the New Year. It's really cool. They have long dragging kites, and you can do a trip virtually, and you can look at all of this and learn about the culture, and your students can recreate that culture. Then they can go back and they can make a poster of what they learn. I always say have them work in pairs or have them work in small groups of 3 or 4, because then you keep them on track and have certain checklists that they're supposed to look for. If you have it ahead of time, then they'll be focused on filling that out, and they'll be focused on what they have to find, that they'll keep on task, because that's it. That's all they're going to see. So if they don't pay attention, then they're not going to get the information they need for their digital poster or a presentation or whatever, a digital book they create. One of the best places to do this, there's actually really good places for, and I've bookmarked that when you go to the bookmarks. But one of the best places to do this is actually this Google Institute. I love this. It's called the Google World Cultures, and the Google World Cultures really has a lot for students. So let me go ahead and get the link for that for you. I've also bookmarked some different types of lesson plans that you could get for Google Earth that I think are really good as well. But the World Culture Institute is one of my absolute favorites, and so I definitely think that that's one that you should check out. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Let me find that one for you because I think it's a very, very good site. The great thing is about the culture is what it'll do is it'll take you on a trip, but not only that, it gives you some really great lesson plans. So it'll take you to even the past. You can go visit historical moments in the past, and it gives you where you can find this moment in history. So you can even go back to when they created these holidays, or what's the thinking, or you can compare and contrast, like how Christmas is celebrated now. And shopping, how did people shop before? How did people shop way back? How about during the Depression? How was Christmas or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah during the Depression? So you can learn history, you can learn geography, you can learn about finances, you can compare what it was, the currency then. You can talk about inflation. So there's so many different things that you can learn that way. One of my favorite things that you can do as a class. So let's say each of your students have a different holiday they celebrate. Well, how can we put this all together and learn from each other? You can have a collaborative class book. Now you can use something like Google Docs. It's pretty easy for everybody to go and to add. What they're going to do is they're going to add a recipe, and they're going to add a recipe page of one of the famous recipes for the holiday. So they'll pick one of the holidays that happens during the time, and a holiday recipe that they have in their family. So it might be a drink, it might be a holiday drink that they have. For me, for example, I would have tamales. Tamales are some of the things, and then they will have a page, and in the page it can be an interview. It could be, for example, I could interview my mother, and ask her about something called the tomalinda and how we get together and we make the different tamales. Well, your students instead, if they celebrate, for example, Hanukkah, they could come up with the recipe. They can talk about the diet, like what it is that you're allowed to eat and what it is you're not allowed to eat during that time. They could do an interview too. They could put little fun facts or trivia about Hanukkah or Kwanzaa. So these are all things that they can contribute. So they contribute the recipe, but then they also contribute a little bit of knowledge about it. And so when you get all of this together, you can actually give this book out and offer it for free. Or you can even charge and raise some money for a charity. You can raise money for the local poor kids to get Christmas presents. You can raise money for animals. There's many things you can do with it, but what you do is you have this culture book of traditional meals during the December holidays, and then you're giving it to the community, and the community would love something like this because you get to learn, and it's very exciting. So I've seen a lot of different you can make a real book, of course. That's always an option. But you could do this digitally, and that wouldn't cost you a lot of money at all. And it's very quick to do because you can find sites will print your book, but that takes some time. So if you want to do it digitally, there are some really great places you can do that. And one of them is issue.com. Issues really, you can check holidays, and the good thing is you learn math because you have to do the you have to not only learn directions of English directions and ingredients and quantities and sizes, but also you have to do the conversions. So if you do it to where everybody has to take that recipe and they have to have it for serving anywhere from 5 people to 10, then your students will practice that math as well. And so you can add very colorful pictures. They can either add some that they take, of course, or they can get Creative Commons pictures. And we've actually covered this before. So if you want to learn about different ideas and things for creating a book, then you can find that information. And I am going to get that for you. So I'll put that in there as want. But you can find some of it in this presentation. I'm going to put in here, and it's how to create an ebook. So you can use Creative Commons pictures. You can even add videos and music and things like that. But with Slip.it, you can slip.it. This used to be glossy, and it's really nice. You can flip it in, and the thing about Issue is if you use Issue, they also have an app, so you can look at it in your you can look at the recipe book in the mobile device, and you can divide it too. Both platforms have a place where you can sell. They have they take care of that if you decide to do that. And if you don't, well, then you can just have a very cool project. You can edit it, and it's you can also do something with an app, the Book Creator app, which is for Android and it's for iOS. The great thing about it is with this one, you can actually add holiday music. You can add the students singing, or let's say you want to put a little video that has where you're showing how to cook it. So that would be great. You can have different students take little videos at home with their parents and they show how to dice, how to chop, how to mint. So that would be a cool little extra feature. Of course, they're going to have to download this from the Google Play Store, or they're going to have to download it from the book. They can do it in iBooks too, so they can download it in both. It's on both stores, and it can be for free, so that's really, really cool. The other thing you can do is you can have digital posters. You can do something like s'more.com, where they add the recipes and little videos on how to. Now, they don't necessarily have to do how-to videos, but what you can do is you can actually take those from YouTube, how to dice, how to chop, what's the best way to best way to peel apples and things like this, how to bake a pie, safety habits for, and those are all really cool things you can add to the book. There's tons and tons of places and apps and web tools to make special holiday greetings. Your students can do this for their families. Animoto.com, Magisto.com, these are apps. They work for Android, they work for iOS, but they're also for your web browser. So they're for the computer as well. You can use it on a Chromebook. You can use it on an iPad, on any device, Animoto.com, Magisto.com, and they have templates for holidays, for Hanukkah, for celebrating Kwanzaa. Storyboard.com is always a great way to make a digital book, and you can use different templates. They have different holiday ones your students can see for Christmas. If you're working with apps, your students can send a nice video with VLEX that's specifically made for the holidays. Photobabble.com always has different types. Roscoe has tons of his Photobabble ones. Bunsey.com, it has Kwanzaa, it has Hanukkah, different types of stickers, it has backgrounds, Diwali, so it's prepared for all of that. Recently, I've been making a lot of things with PicCollage.com. It's a great way to make a digital scrapbook so your students can get memories of their families. They can take scrapbooks that the families already have, and they can digitalize them. And parents would really, really, really like that. You can use the red stamp. It's a way to make holiday cards. It's for Android, iOS. And you can find all of these, of course, in the slides if you want to go to the Pearl Tree. So thank you so much for coming today. Here is, we did this last year, but I always think it's really cute to have Roscoe and his little holiday ones. We'll be preparing our holiday one for you for 2014 very soon, as soon as my little baby is all healed. So you'll be able to see that. You can purchase my books. I actually have 2 books out now. I have the 30 Goals Challenge for Teachers, and I have Learning to Go. So if you want any of those, you can go to shellyterrell.com/publications and find it. Thank you so much. And if you have any types of resources, make sure to include them in the chat box, and we will go ahead and we will put those in the bookmarks as well.